My goal for you is for you to be able to walk away today with a clearer plan on how to start integrating mindfulness into whatever spaces you're in, whether a school, whether a district, whether an organization. And we're starting with the adults. And we know that we have to have that practice. And truly, even if we are the ones in that space that have our own practice, we're still impacting those around us. So we know like that is the foundation to everything else that we do in order to have a mindful culture into our schools. So this whole session is going to be revolving around how to support you and how to support the adults that you support or work with or team. Some of you may be here as liaisons for a mindful committee that you're starting to form. Some of you are here as that leader who is wanting to share this. And some of you are teachers here as well that are just wanting to be able to start practicing. So it spans every grade, everywhere for everyone, which is the amazing thing about wellness and mindfulness. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lindsay Frank, and as I was sharing, by day, I am a climate and social emotional learning coach for a school district in Illinois, in the Chicagoland area. Michelle here as also in my district in District 59. So I work district-wide, and that's pre-K through 8th grade. Outside of the school day, I like to call that my passion project, where I started to develop my own business, really for educator well-being coaching. And I also share yoga for kids, yoga for adults, and just anything with wellness. We know that in order for us to teach well and lead well, we need to be well. And so that's really where my passion is. And then with COSM, as Tracy shared, I am the director for local chapters and international chapters, all chapters. So if any of you either are interested in connecting with a chapter nearby or you want to create one, feel free to also reach out for that as well. I did share a little bit of my background, but I'll share again that when I first started teaching, I was kindergarten through 8th grade as a pre-algebra teacher, a guided reading teacher, and then an interventionist, all in the year. I like to wear a lot of hats. And after that, I was a learning behavior specialist in a special education resource setting, and that was kindergarten through 5th grade. And then this will be my 5th year in my current role as the climate and SEL coach for my district. So it's kind of a little bit about me, and you will learn a lot about me, and I look forward to learning about you here today. All right, I'm going to pull up my chat box. I am definitely a big fan of the chat box as well. And so feel free, if questions come up, please put them inside the chat box. But we will be doing a lot of interaction today. That's why we really wanted it to be in person as much as possible for our virtual in-person space here. So we will be moving into breakout rooms. We will have independent planning. We'll have whole group time. So this is really an interactive session. So I do want to offer for our space, and this also moves into that trauma-informed lens. You always want to have your space as a safe space for everybody. And especially if we are sharing mindfulness within our community, even having options within your norms or your agreements, whatever you like to call them. But notice and think, like, do you have this in your space when you're practicing? If you're sharing this with adults, do they feel comfortable? And so I'm offering them here. If we want to add any other ones, please feel free to share in the chat box. But listen with an open heart. We're coming from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different experiences, and just being that space to mindfully listen versus thinking about the response. Approach with a beginner's mind. Some of the things that I'll share, you may have tried, or maybe you saw it happen and maybe it worked, or maybe it didn't work, but approach everything with that beginner's mindset today, and maybe think if there's a way of even just twisting it a little bit to let it work for you. I bolded actively engage on purpose. It's going to be my favorite one because we want to take risks today. I am going to be asking you to do that. I know we don't know each other very well, but hopefully as our day moves on, just forming this community. And with that, you'll also notice I made on our COSM platform, there is a special group that I just created for us to share resources, ideas and thoughts all there. So where that says that special link to the platform, you'll have access to that, and that's just for this group. Okay, so feel free to share your thoughts there as well, asking questions and respecting self-care. I like to stand when I present, so at any time you want to stand or move or stretch, you're going to take care of you. I am planning 2 breaks because we do have 3 hours together. So I want to at least honor that as well, that we can step away. And I also want to just put a caveat, my sump pump has been making weird noises the last 2 days. And sometimes we might have an impromptu break so I can attend to the sump pump. All right. So we will begin with a mindful moment if you wish, and then we'll learn different strategies for the supports along the way. Any questions about our journey here for our morning or afternoon and wherever you may be? All right. So if you wish, go ahead, and I would encourage you, if you have paper nearby or a journal, yes, you can use your computer, but I honestly would have something also to write with if possible, especially for a few activities. But for our intention, I would encourage you to have your paper nearby. And also, if you ended up bringing that rock nearby, go ahead and just bring it by. If you don't have one, just imagine that you have that in that space, because it's really that symbol for our time. So if you wish to join me, maybe you sit back in your chair or sit tall or stand, whatever is most comfortable for you. And just take a moment to settle in, noticing from the bottoms of your feet to the top of your head, just what's present today with your body, breath, emotions, and thoughts. Just checking in with you. And then choosing if you'd like your eyes open or eyes closed, so just being fully present and here. And if it's safe and comfortable for you to bring awareness to your breathing, just notice that space that's created as you breathe. And if you prefer to have a different form of grounding other than breath, maybe you choose to just allow your body to move from left to right and notice that space between each movement. You choose what works best for you and just notice the space. And in that space, allow this opportunity for an intention to fill that. And that guiding quote as we begin is understanding that creating something new, it can be easy. But creating something that lasts can be that challenge. And so with this intention in that space, allowing it either for this time or even expanding it out a little bit bigger into that intention of why you're here for schools, the lives of students, staff, families, community. And thinking about that why and how, like that hope, that goal, that vision for creating this mindful community. And then taking 3 more breaths here on your own. And after your 3rd breath, go ahead and write your intention down on that paper. There's no rush. Again, after your 3rd breath, keeping with that feeling, Just writing that intention down, that goal for today or bigger. I encourage you to expand it bigger. And once you've written it down, place your rock right by it. And if you don't have a physical rock, just imagine that movement of that rock that is here in that space. And if you wish, you can place your hands on your heart or one on your rock or your paper, and this time to kind of seal in this practice, seal in this mindfulness, seal in this purpose, this goal, this vision, this hope, this intention. And just notice how it resonates with you, and maybe notice if you're getting feedback from your heart as well. And take another breath here. And as you're ready, maybe on your next inhale, opening up your eyes if they were closed and looking around the space, bringing yourself back. And I encourage you, if you'd like, to also write your intention in the chat box. That helps me as a presenter to let me know where we can go. But if you want to keep it to yourself, that's okay too. But I'd encourage you to do so. And as you're doing that, I want to share a quote with you. This whole session is actually based off of chapter 34 in the Educating Mindfully book. I had written this chapter, it's probably 2 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. But the whole chapter revolves around bringing mindfulness into our spaces for adults and really focusing on the intentionality behind that. And the chapter itself is called The Ocean is Calling. And that's where the rock and the stone and the water and the ripples are coming into the theme. So this quote that I have on the screen was actually a quote within our team at the time to kind of propel us forward with different things. And it's really that, I alone can't change the world, although I always wish we can, but I know I alone can't and you alone can't. However, I can cast a stone across the waters and I can create the many ripples, right? And so the quote here and adaptations of this quote, it just really resonated with me and is the inspiration behind all of this, and noticing how any ripple. This past weekend, I was actually in Lake Geneva, my first time, Lake Geneva, celebrating our anniversary. But what I was noticing is when the boats would come by, I had never noticed this before. When the boats would come by, the ripples would go out, and I actually was mindfully watching them and waiting for them to come all the way to the shore. But what I noticed was long after the boats left, that there was still like that entrail, like how airplanes long after they've gone, there's still that entrail. I never noticed that on boats before. I just assumed the water became more still. It was fascinating to me that I had never noticed that before. So I want you to know that rock that you have, whether physically here or in this space in your mind, that impact still matters. And thank you for those who are sharing in the chat box. I'm just taking a peek here. Yes. Oh, yes. During IEP meetings, I am working with somebody on that as well. Just bringing that here. Being a catalyst for good. Yes. For change for good. Yes. Yes. In the school community. Self-care. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. All right. And just either in the chat box or if you have your camera on, a show of hands, like Does everybody have a copy of this book? Honestly, I've read this book cover to cover. And I love it. And I refer back to this all the time, but does everyone have it? Because if not, I might do something here. All right, I see Steve is like, nope, I don't have it. Lisa's no. I'm wondering, Tracy, can you take the names of the people who don't have the book? And if it's everybody, that's cool too. I will give one away. By the end, I'll take everyone's name and at the end, I'll just pull one out and I'll email you. But if you can let me know who doesn't have it, because truly it's been known as a field guide, and no matter what level or where you're supporting, there's something in here that will resonate with you. It's really gold. So I want to give this to you. I know Tracy will appreciate that as well. So within the story, within the chapter, I'm going to be taking us through the phases. So these phases are not scientific. They're just from my experiences working with teachers in my district, but also supporting those who are outside of my district and the process that they've been going through as well. So the first phase is that embodiment, right? We have to be the ripple. Our next phase, after we explore that together, will be creating those opportunities for adult wellness. So we want people to actually get in the boat with us, right? So we have that. We want them to get in with us. We want to be a community. As we're in this boat, we want to be able to now learn together, because the fun thing also that I find absolutely fascinating about mindfulness and wellness and everything and learning is that it never stops, right? So there's always something new to learn. So we're going to learn to swim. We're going to learn to steer this boat together. And as we're doing this, we're going to then be looking out for, well, who could be that partnership? Who are our crew members? Who can be there with us to support it? Because we know sustainability is the most important thing here, because it's more than that person, right? We're more than just that rock. We can be that rock, we can be that ripple, but unless we have the sustainability in place, if this rock goes to a new puddle, well, then that other community no longer has that gift that we're wanting to share. Phase 5 is then that patience, persistence, and presence, our 3 P's here, where we're going to be riding the waves, because we know as things happen, so does resistance, so does interesting experiences. So how can we do that together? How can we feel empowered to be able to stand in those spaces and support people along the way? And then finally, in phase 6 is that reflection. But we know that reflection also leads to more action. So yes, we can admire the ocean, but then guess what? We have to go deeper. And there's always something more to explore. So these are the phases that we will be going into today through your action plan. Yes, Tracy sharing in the chat box, just again, giving a little shout out to the book, is there's 40 chapters, and each chapter being written by a different educator or leader or organization within that, so that it's real stories. Tracy, you want to make that analogy or anything for the chicken soup?
Oh yeah, no, someone just asked who the author was, so I thought I would, yeah, we collaborated with over 20 resource organizations. So like, you know, Mind Up wrote a chapter, Mindful Schools wrote a chapter, and such. But yes, our goal is to make a Chicken Soup for the Soul book, but that was really kind of have a snapshot of what was happening with mindfulness in schools right now. So yeah, you'll get teary-eyed, you'll laugh, you'll get those goosebumps but you can pick it up and kind of start wherever you want. So it's really handy, and it's nice to do like for book clubs in your school, or gift it to your administrator. So because sometimes they have to just see what it would look like to have it in your district. So it fits a lot of bills.
Yeah, and you'll also find the common threads. So especially for those of you, whether you are an administrator or you're looking as an administrator to expand to other leadership teams, because maybe you might be the one that's like, okay, I just want the rest of my leadership team to to see this, to feel this, or whether you're a teacher or somebody else in an organization, like it really connects, and you get inspiration from there. And you can literally, as Tracy said, even pick a chapter and try it out. Like there were applicable things and maps. And so like this, I'm sharing my gold with you. I'm biased on that, but I've seen it happen. So that's why I'm passionate about this. Oh, I think I gave it away. What is the number one, the ultimate number one thing of all these phases? Like what phase has to happen or all of the other ones will basically fail? Either in the chat box, probably the chat box. It's our safety net here. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you don't have it, the rest will fail. Thank you, Sandra. Yes, phase 1, as I'm sure all of you know. But just reiterating, phase 1, we have to embody it. You know, I talk with a lot of people and we're wanting to try these different programs, and I'm going to do this app, and oh, okay, I can share this with the kids and this will be great. But there's no meaning and connection behind it. So even if we share it with the kids, they're going to go to their next period, their next class, the end of the day, go home, gone. And unless we embody the practice, then it's not going to happen if we don't do that. However, all of these phases are what support the mindful culture. So again, it's not one thing to create the culture, as we all know, because when we're creating culture and shifting culture, that's beliefs, that's society, that's values, that's deep work, that's hard work. But all of these phases are what lead to that mindful culture. And so maybe during our time together, you might take a look and notice like, okay, like, where am I at? Or where is my team at? Or where is my school or district at? And maybe there's things that, you know, you can focus on more than others. But again, with that beginner's mind, I'll challenge you. There are still probably other pieces to the puzzle here on our journey within our boat. So the structure is, I'm going to share my story, each part. So this is an integrated planning. So you're going to get a little taste. You're going to plan your experience and following kind of these steps. On phase 2, these steps really come out. So you're going to notice today, we're really going to focus on phases 1 to 3 a lot. That's the majority of our time because that's the foundation. And then when we get to 4, 5, and 6, near the end, it kind of evens out just a little bit, a little less intense. So I hope you're in the boat with me today because we're going, whether you like or not, we're going. So you are becoming the scientist of possibilities. Because we also know, hey, guess what? COVID happened. And yeah, I may have written that chapter 2 years ago, but we all, you know, a whole year was unique. So we're going into these spaces where we've never been. You know, even if we have been able to teach in person at the end of the school year, well, great, there's still differences that are going to be happening. So we need to be creative and be okay with the unknown. I don't consider myself an expert. When people call me an expert, it kind of like makes me cringe, but I still love you all anyway. But I'm always learning. You're always learning. And so my role, even as a coach, is to think and help guide you and me and always learning together. So that's what we're going to do here today. So everybody take a breath in and a breath out. I'll do one more. Breathing in, breathing out. Thank you. I was noticing my passion was really rising. I needed to recenter myself. So phase 1, embodying mindfulness. You need to be that ripple. So the very first thing, and here for our norms, this is going to go under engagement, that little bullet point under taking risks. Yep. We're going for it. We're going to jump in right now. So this is one of my favorite tools that kind of flip mindsets, because even though we're here and most likely most of you may feel like really empowered and ready to take on the world with mindfulness, maybe some of you not. And either way, those different voices will come in. That's the biggest thing that happens. So this tool is something that you can use for you or even share with teachers or even kids, depending on how you adapt it. Obviously, for my early learning friends, this may not be the best for the kids. However, you never know. There's always a way of modifying. Okay, so we're going to be changing our mindset, and this has to happen in order for the rest as well. So again, if you have your rock and your vision intention statement, you're going to need both of those still, pulling it back around and in. You'll see on the screen that there are three sections. You have the middle, which is that vision, and that's where the rock is going to stay for a moment. So that's what you've written. Then we have on that other side, we have those limiting thoughts that start entering in when we say that intention. Yes, you'll keep yourself on mute, but I do encourage you to go full in. So you get whatever you need, but I encourage you to do this. So you will have those limiting thoughts that kind of pop in. But then thinking about the other side here are courageous counters. Those are what we can see the other side to, see the possibilities with, and kind of going from there, okay? So here's our process. And I'm gonna do an example first. But you're gonna read your vision. You're gonna read what you wrote, and it's right by that stone. You're gonna check in, how does that feel with your heart? And then pause for a moment and see like, okay, does something try to stop me? Does that inner voice come out like you don't have enough resources? People don't want to listen to you. Staff think that you're crazy. Whatever those things that come up, notice what's there. Pick one. The first one that comes up, you're going to pick. Say it out loud. Yes, say it out loud. All right. Then you're going to state that courageous counter statement. So again, I'll do an example of this in a moment, but those are like, if you don't have enough resources, your courageous counter statement is, well, I have resources that I can tap into, for example, even COSM, that can help support me into exploring the next step, okay? So that's really what we're going to do. And if you're willing to stand up, I would do that because you're going to be moving your rock or moving your body. Again, I'm a mover, so this is what happens. Okay. So I will do my example first so you can see how this goes. And I'm going to guide you along the way as well. So for example, I have my rock and I'm picturing this on my paper. Vision, goal. And I had written down here, mindfulness is embedded across the whole district in every school. Checking with my heart. And maybe let's do it together. So state yours as well. So go ahead and stand up if you wish. State yours, staying on mute. Your intention. Check in with your heart. Then you're going to take your rock or your body, and you're going to move one space to the limit number one. So I might be opposite of you because that's what cameras do, but you're going to follow the screen. So limit one. So notice what comes up. For me, what came up when I said this was, well, I'm just one person. So what comes up for you that tries to stop you? And say it out loud. Then move back to that center. State your vision now after hearing that limit. Mindfulness is embedded across the whole district and every school. How does that feel? Then move your rock or body to that other side, to the counter statements. You're going to counter that limit. So for me, I said I was only one person. My courageous counter statement that's coming up for me right now is, well, I have the ability to go to all of these different schools and connect with a whole lot of different people so I can create partnerships. So no big deal that I'm one person. For you, what is that courageous counter statement that matches that limit. Say it out loud, and after you're done, come back to the middle and state your vision and goal, moving that rock back. Mindfulness is embedded across the whole district in every school. Recheck. Limit 2. So you're going to move your rock your body 2 spaces if you haven't already. It's still here. Now, what comes up? Right now, for me, what's come up is some people don't think that mindfulness is needed in schools. What's coming up for you? Say it out loud. And come back to the middle when you're ready, stating that vision intention you have. Mindfulness is embedded across the whole district in every school.
I need a little more time in between.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, you do your own thing. You like, I'm just guiding. I think you get the steps as well. No problem. Oh, wait. Allows us to feel it in our bodies more. And as you are ready, again, you're on your own speed. You can move your rock or your body 2 spaces to the counter side. Again, it might be opposite of me because of the camera. And for a moment, just think about what matches that limit that you just shared. Again, for me, it was that not everybody thinks that mindfulness or wellness within that school space is needed. My courageous counter statement that's coming up for me is that I have different tools to be able to share and connect with people, and maybe they just haven't found what works for them to know the benefit that it could have on their lives and the lives of students. And see what courageous counter statement comes up for you. And then as you're ready, again, moving back to the middle and moving that rock to the middle, depending where you're at. And stating your vision. Mindfulness is embedded across the whole district in every school. Feel what it feels like in your body. And notice if any other thoughts come up that try to stop you. We're only going to do one more. Maybe it's the same thought that comes up too. You can always, maybe it's that persistent one. As you're ready, you can move to that side for your last limit for this time. If something's come up. For me, just what's come up again was just the sustainability. How can this be sustained? I doubt it. And then back to the middle when you're ready, stating your vision again. Mindfulness is embedded across the whole district in every school. And then your courageous counter as you're ready, 3. It can be sustained, again, by just being mindful, being in that space and sharing it with other people so that they can have the opportunity to embed it into their own life and their own partnerships so that we can do this as a community. And then as you're ready, last time, stating and just feeling that intention and vision back. And mindfulness is embedded across the whole district in every school. And noticing at this point, if the possibilities kind of surface more. And as you're ready, again, maybe taking 3 more breaths to transition back. And noticing if you're still with that intention, or maybe that intention shifted. And being present with it. And so since that was a unique experience, I'm guessing many of you may not have had that activity before. I do want you to be able to get into breakout rooms. So I'm going to see if Tracy might be able to do that for us. I'll check back in with her in a moment. But when you get into the breakout rooms, you'll introduce yourself, share what your goal is, or that vision, that intention. What is it? What thoughts came up that tried to stop you? And what were your courageous counter statements? How was your overall experience with this? Did you like it? Did you not? Is there resistance to it or not? And the purpose of this is because we, as the leaders in this space, bringing this wherever we're going, have to be able to stand in that resistance when it comes up, because this also then allows us to know what other people might be thinking and how we can have those responses and stand in that space. You know, sometimes those limiting thoughts or even the courageous counter statements, sometimes when we might need to hear ourselves say it out loud again, just offering that space here. And sometimes that's really hard. So I don't know if all of you, I did see some of you like up and moving and doing it. But notice if maybe you didn't, and just notice like what the resistance was, because a lot of times that we do have those things that stop us, right? But thanks for sharing. I was just noting some of the things as well, like time was huge. Time was huge. But having the courageous counter statement about like, well, there are ways, like if I was able to maybe plan ahead, or, you know, figuring out different ways in my schedule. So that it just was really great to hear the possibilities. I'm all about the possibilities. Fun fact, I wrote a children's book. It's about change through the lens of a butterfly. And it's about the possibilities. So I'm a little bit obsessed about that. All right. Well, let's keep moving and grooving, because fun fact as well, it's almost an hour. Oh, that's always good. Okay, so just take a moment here, just rating yourself. You don't need to put it in the chat box if you don't wish to, but just, do you have a mindfulness practice or wellness practice? I use those words interchangeably because to me, when you are well and you're doing something that is helping your body, your mind, or anything in between, you're being present with it. So sometimes verbiage matters, and sometimes within schools, the word mindfulness may not resonate with certain people. So I interchange that with wellness as well. And then just thinking about like, how do you integrate mindfulness into your day? Like, is it integrated? Is it not? How would you like it to be? So just taking stock in that for a moment here. Yes, thanks for sharing that, Steve. All right. So I'm going to share some things that I do, because some people I realize I don't really share a lot about like how I keep myself in this mindful space. Caveat, I absolutely have practiced for a while and I found things that work for me. So I'm going to share with you a whole bunch of things that I do. No, I don't do them all every day, but that's what we're going to be moving into. Is in a moment after we're done here, you're going to be double checking with yourself for your own self-care wellness plan for that first part of embodiment. Again, we're going to be really focusing on phases 1, 2, and 3. So with 1, we need that to be solid. So here are some ideas, and maybe you might want to grab a couple of them. And I always need to do my ABC, always be connected to myself. So early in the morning, whenever I do that, I always think of that song, early in the morning. Okay, so, I clicked on a link. To see, this always happens when I like to make surprises, and it likes to surprise me with that. Okay, thank you. It's because I got excited for singing. It told me stop singing, Lindsay. Okay. All right.
Oh, we like the singing.
Oh yes, I'll just pull out the violin too, and then we'll just yes. Maybe we'll do that during the break.
I'm guessing you're singing.
I love to sing. I do. And I think Michelle is here. When I got to do children's yoga in her class, one of her teacher's classes, I'm pretty sure I was singing about trees. All right. So early in the morning, I do my heart reflection. So heart is an acronym. It's actually something that I, again, created in my mind based off of things around. I like to create things. So it's an acronym. If any of you are interested in learning more, feel free to reach out. I'm not going to get into that, but it's a way of just checking in with myself, being present and integrated super quick. So I like to do that. I also want to share that Mind Valley is something that I'm a part of and do and support both for my own personal growth as well as supporting those. I'm one of the ambassadors for Mind Valley as well. So it's pretty, it's basically a university for personal growth. Sign me up. So if you don't know about that, I'm just giving them a shout out here. No, I don't get any money for doing that. I just get a fancy title of ambassador. Anyway. But yeah, so I'll normally do some kind of like course, and they're bite-sized little mini courses for personal growth. And I normally do a meditation of the day. And I'm a big fan of tea. Like I have my tea here today. Because I can't drink coffee, which is probably a good thing with caffeine in me, but I love tea and my lemon water. And even just doing something like that, if I wake up and I'm in a rush, if I even just have a tea or water, like I know that I've done something for me because I've labeled it as something as a mindful moment for me. Breathing, reading, sometimes weekends are Epsom salt baths, just because again, there's something about that just helps my body, and also the My Life app. So some of you may use Calm or Headspace for an app. My Life used to be free. Now they have free parts of it, which is so sad because it was amazing when it was free. But all I use is the meditation timer that's on there because I really like the sound versus my phone when I guide my own meditations in there. For morning, I have my own playlist. So maybe it's, if you are into music, just finding music that like resonates with you. So like particular days, I have particular playlists that to me is my mindful moment, depending on what I'm needing for the day. I like to keep my place pretty quiet in the morning. So that's why I wake up super early. I don't have kids of my own, but my husband makes a lot of noise. So I like to wake up before him. And just kind of just keeping that and setting that intention for the day. So then at work, these are some things that I do to, again, keep me ready to have space and hold space for the teachers that I support and the students that I support and leaders. So because I travel, at least not last year, which kind of was nice, a little bit near the end, but when I would travel, I have like my breathing bracelet that I have. I will mindfully walk. So I don't know, it seems like some of you might want to get up and move again. So I'm going to ask you if you'd like to, we're going to do this for a moment. You're going to synchronize your breathing with your walking. You choose how many steps are your in breath and your out breath. I'm going to walk around my space here. Let's just take a minute just to move because it's always good to move. So you'll be breathing in, 2, 3, 4, or however many, and then breathing out, 2, 3, 4. So just do your own mindful walking, breathing while you're doing this just for a moment. So imagine like if you have different classrooms that you support. I know some of you are mentioning in a special education role, walking to your IEP meetings. If you are in junior high, preparing for your next period, walking in your classroom, synchronizing your breathing. Leaders, as you're going to your observations for teachers, doing the breathing there. And start making your way back to the camera or space. That's literally my favorite thing, simple thing to do. Very integrated, not a lot of time, right? Like it's just naturally there. stoplights, breathing, mindful transitions. Intentions are huge. Holding the space. So here are some other ones. These are more like team-based or school-based, and sometimes even with the students too. There was a leader that wanted to embed mindfulness during their announcements. I want to say there's even a chapter in the Educating Mindfully book, which might be, Tracy, is it like stop, drop, and breathe? I think it's what it was.
Yeah, or stop everything and move, I think. Something like
Okay, yeah. So like there's, again, little quick things like that you can do whole school. But like the announcements, having that mindful lunch, even just one bite with teams. Sometimes what I would offer is like, I would meet with them during lunch because that's when meeting as coaches happen. So offering just that space of one bite before you jump into your meeting, of just being with that. Maybe adding those norms, as we mentioned in the beginning, to the norms during your team meetings or classroom, right? If you have your classroom agreements as well. And just taking that risk of leading the adult moments. You never know who really appreciates it. And even if there might be resistance, or we feel like, I still feel it every time, like, you get the butterflies every time that you do lead it, but that's how you know that you care about something so much and that it's an important piece, right? And then after work, I will commit to at least one of these things, whether it's yoga at a studio, which I miss and can't wait to do that soon. So I'll be doing my at-home practice. So this is my yoga space. Like I always have my yoga space. Again, thank goodness for my husband to allow me to have this space. But is there somewhere in your house, like even just putting a mat or putting just somewhere special for you that's a constant reminder, like I can't go to the kitchen without seeing this, right? I can't put on my jacket without seeing this, because this is like a central area in my space. So it's a constant reminder that I matter. And when I have my own nervous system here, then I can be in the spaces with other people. Okay, and walking. I now know almost all of my neighbors. Again, thank you, COVID, for letting me realize how much I love walks, even just around my block. 6 minutes can make it all the way around, or I do longer at the lake. But think about what works for you. So these are things that I do. What works for you? Okay, and then the evening routines and journaling. And as I've mentioned, we are reflected in what's around us, and what's around us is reflected in us. So we have the ability to regulate these spaces. There's 2 quotes. And again, those of you who have heard me present, I tell you this, that I will put this in every single presentation I ever do. It's from Mindful Schools, okay? And that children reflect the nervous systems of the adults around them. I'm gonna say it again. Children reflect the nervous systems of the adults around them. Children and adults reflect the nervous systems of the adults around them. Okay. And that's really the quote that I use for people who are like, why do I do this? What's the point? Well, guess what? If your nervous system is regulated, like that's the most important thing, because everything else is reflected back. So when people have resistance, I share that quote and then they go, huh, that's really interesting. And just make them think. The second one that I love, again, if you've taken Breathe for Change, I was in a group that was starting to talk about Breathe for Change. I did do my yoga certification through them, one of the certifications through Breathe for Change. But this was a book that we had to read because it's really that inner journey of a teacher. It's really deep. So if you like deep, insightful reads, Parker Palmer's book is really great. I do like that kind of reading. So there's a quote in here, and it's teaching holds a mirror to the soul. If I'm willing to look in that mirror and not run from what I see, I have a chance to gain self-knowledge. And knowing myself is as crucial to good teaching as knowing my students and my subject. Super powerful. So take away the importance of the mirror and that you bring that into that space. So action planning. I'm going to guide you here to the tool. I think all of you should, again, have access. I think, Tracy, if you don't mind putting the link again in the chat box, just so everybody can make their own copy. You will make a copy or download it, depending if you have Google or not, so you choose what's best for you. We are only looking at the first part. And what I like to do is take like little snapshots of the most important pieces. So we're just looking at phase 1 of embody mindfulness with integrity. So there are 3 things to consider and then 3 options. So the first bullet point there is asking you, like, what is your personal definition of mindfulness? The reason why this one is here, because you have to have your own. Yes, we have Jon Kabat-Zinn, we have the official definitions, but you have to find your own connection with it. Because when somebody asks you, you have to be able to articulate it and have your heart into it. You know, you're not going to pull up your phone and read the definition, but you want something that resonates with you. Then thinking about, again, how do you integrate it during your day? The in the moment strategy is that moment where it's like, okay, I know I'm approaching, I'm going to refer to the window of tolerance. Again, some of you may not know what that is. That's okay. You can always reach out, but bear with me here. If I'm approaching that edge of that window, I need to be able to do something to come back to continue in that space. Okay. So maybe thinking about what could be that in the moment strategy. And then 3 options. These can be your menu. So you know how I kind of made this agenda of my day. Each of those different aspects is like a menu that I can choose from. You can make the options what you want. I put guides there if you need or want to use. But the first one is, what do you commit to on like those time limit days when you're really busy, exhausted? But what is that one thing that you could commit to for you? Even just, I always use this when I used to take the breath before I came into the house. That's still being time with me that I honor and commit to. All right. Option 2 is, well, what's your average day? Like, what are these options that you choose from then? And then option 3, what about those days when you're feeling really good? You have the time and you have the energy to be able to continue to take care of yourself to the highest level that you can for you. So we'll take about, I'm going to do about 10 minutes here. And then as you're doing this, think about like how you can maybe share this with the teachers or your teammates. Fun fact, on the outside, I even create these for students and their families. So maybe thinking about how this can be an integrated tool that's simple. Okay. Questions, ideas, comments? All right, start making your way back. And as we're waiting, if any of you wish to join in half sun salutations just for a movement, feel free. If not, I'm just going to do that for a few moments just to move. So feel free if you want to join. If not, settle yourself back in. Arms reaching up. Your heart into a forward fold. Halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, ask them up. And hands to your heart. I'll do 3 more. Hands reaching up. To your heart. Forward fold. Releasing your spine. Inhale, halfway lift. Forward fold. And hands to your heart. 2 more on your own speed. If you wish to move, Just transitioning back into the space, integrating anything from our learning so far. Continuing to connect your intention last time. Pulling that intention again back to your heart. Breathing in that space. And closing as you're ready. And then coming back here, taking any other moment here for you. And so whether you took a break for your self-care or if you were planning, I am going to give us, we'll do 5 minutes. We'll do 5 minutes in the breakout room just to share some thoughts of things that you've done, tools that you've explored. Maybe you might want to use that as a moment to share your definition, to see how it resonates with people. Use it for you, but just check in with each other for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back together. Does that sound like a plan? Welcome back. Okay. So again, I'm hoping that these moments to even just collaborate, gain ideas. I was just in a lovely room in a space where it's like, you know, a lot of newness. This is still new for people. And I want to just mention this too. This has come up in a couple of groups now that I've bounced into, is leading mindfulness with people. And that's why the embodiment of the practice is huge, because even if you like listen to an app or listen to a recording, when I'm doing my coaching, which this is probably a good segue too of what we'll be doing next, I encourage people to do that and let that be I call it the mentor text. You know how we have like mentor text? Well, it's mentor audio. Let that be examples. See what works for you, then try to like mirror the language that comes up for you. And scripts are there for a reason. And so somebody was sharing how they're just so nervous about, you know, being able to share in front of people, and oh, what happens if I'm reading a script and things like that. I'm exaggerating for the issue for a little bit of that, but still, I've heard this numerous times, and from people that I coach, they're very nervous. It's a different way of teaching, right? Right? It's totally different, and for some reason, it instills this fear. And all what that is that we're actually connecting inside. We're being vulnerable. You know, good old Brene Brown, she lets us know the importance of this. When we share a mindful moment, we're sharing a piece of our heart with people. We're sharing the moment with people. And so we are automatically being vulnerable. And that's why it's this moment that you're opening up with people. But knowing that the script is a beautiful thing too, because you're then modeling for people, even as leaders, being able to use scripts. You're modeling for people who are like just as nervous that I can use a script. And I know that all those pieces are there. And so if we can model that for them too, it makes it more accessible. So be okay with the script, be okay with the words. You know, I had written different scripts in my district, just a set core of them. You know, you don't need to have you download those 250 scripts, you've seen how that's done there. Sometimes you just need a core 5 and get really good at those 5 and share those 5 and know that those are important. And it helps us and it helps those who are with us. So I had to just share that. I hope for what it's worth that resonates with you. So any other thoughts from the breakout room before we move on?
I think one of the things that I've learned, and we didn't say it in so many words in our group, but I think we were all kind of alluding to it, is that a lot of what we talk about in mindfulness is not really rocket science. It's actually fairly simple, but we really need to remember to do it, and we need to find the time to do it, because sometimes people will say, I'm too busy for mindfulness. And I think you're the person who, try not to pass judgment, right? But you're the person who really would benefit from mindfulness. And it doesn't have to be a half an hour. It could be 5 minutes, you know, per day. And on your good days, if you could stretch that out, that would be good, right? So
Yeah, and that goes to, I mean, we're just gonna see where this ship goes, but you're now validating the fact too that we mentioned society, and society places different labels and experiences on things. So just how I mentioned before, like maybe the word mindfulness may not resonate with some people, and maybe there's an alternative word. Later on in the presentation, I had something that I kind of stumbled across, but it came out and the person resonated with it. So I work with a lot of leaders, and sometimes when a leader goes, we're going to engage in a mindful moment, it just doesn't always resonate with the words that they normally would use. However, I started using the words wellness facilitation strategies. Wellness facilitation strategies. And so once I started kind of opening up and knowing where people are, and seeing what resonates with them, that was like that key to that one door that now all of a sudden, oh, okay, yeah, I can do a wellness facilitation strategy versus leading a mindful moment. So just connecting to people where they're at. So speaking of that, let's come back here for phase 2. And these are creating those opportunities for adult wellness. Now, this also is that opportunity now, just kind of like what Steve said, like, I don't have time. Well, if we're creating these opportunities that are now embedded and they have different ways of connecting with people, then they have a higher likelihood of being like, oh, it's just a part of the culture. It's just a part of the day. It's a part of teaching. It's a part of my life. So when we do that, that allows us to have that experiential learning, which then also starts, chipping away at the misconceptions. It chips away at the misunderstanding because now we can actually experience it. And I do want to mention here as well, again, we're not going to be able to touch on everything, but in chapter 34, you can read about my experience in there of other things. So if you miss it, again, this is recorded, but there are some things within the book on chapter 34 that really kind of guide along the way as well. So the mindset that I had when I first started dipping my toes into this, I really only started dipping my toes. So apparently my panic and anxiety literally it started actually in 2007, and I ignored it and ignored it and ignored it and ignored it. And then it goes, 2016, you better do something or you're not going to be okay. So that really, I didn't start my journey until 2016. And then from there, 2018 is when I started being able to do Breathe for Change, and once I started aligning myself inside, everything else started aligning outside. Okay. So the mindset when I started dipping my toes was that it's worth it, even if one person comes and experiences it. I've then adapted that. This is the important part. You have to also have the intention of, and open to more, because then I found myself limiting myself to, oh, it's okay, I have one person, versus it's worth it even if one person comes and I'm open to more, right? Because now we're building that partnership as well. Okay, so here are some ideas, and then we'll plan a little bit, share a little bit, and then phase 3. So weekly opportunities, is there something that you, or again, when you get to the partnerships, being able to help them as well, like, is there something weekly that you can offer? Is there a shared experience that people can have? You've heard of these before, but really think about the intention behind it and the impact that it can have. They're just small mini moments. Again, saying like what Steve said, like this was 5 or 10 minutes. When I did this, they were before school on Thursdays, 5 to 10 minutes. I had it at one school, which was a junior high school. They were on early hours, so it was more accessible for other people in the district if they wanted to come. So it was every Thursday. We pre-planned kind of like what activities, I would say, what mindful practice that we had, so that people had different unique tools. And if you haven't explored COSM self-care resources, as a COSM member, you get all that for free. So maybe it's even something like you pull up that and you watch a short segment of it. Just something to fill up your own bucket during the day. Maybe you have something that's a monthly session. So this is where my creativity was kind of flowing here, and I created the morale and mindfulness committee or learning sessions, because we noticed that morale was kind of low, which that's common a lot of places, right? But we also want to make sure that we have the mindfulness within that, because if we have the mindful practices and we're all doing this as a community, the morale will naturally begin to increase, right? Like it'll like embrace everything around it. So these were monthly sessions. I'll spend a little bit more time with this when we get to the learning piece here, but these are those stepping stones. Maybe you offer just these, I like to call them like pop-up experiences. So maybe there's certain days you're like, hey, during my plan, I'm just gonna be like, hey, any teammates, let's just practice together. Or, you know, is it a random day? When I would go to schools, I would maybe connect to during lunch and just be like, hey, I'm at your building today. If anyone wants to join me, I'm just gonna do a quick practice and feel free to come. So it could be just short, random. Maybe your district offers professional learning time. And maybe part of that can be an optional mindful movement for staff, or they can engage in self-planning. So that self-care plan that you just kind of experienced, maybe, it's my favorite word right now, maybe you can even just have that, like cut that in a half sheet of paper, not intimidating if it's small, and have people just come and they can explore and write and learn together. Maybe there's different teams. This is also a resource that I share at every professional learning. And it's just because I have a connection with this. This book, Onward, was by chance. I did not seek this book out. It found me. And I was originally trying to find her book about coaching. And it was not available. So I'm like, well, it's the same author. I'm just going to get this book. Apparently, I'm pre-ordering it before it even came out. I had no idea. I had never read anything by Elena, but this book is the one that inspired the rest of the committee work that I did. It's organized by month. There's bite-sized pieces, sharing in case you're interested. There is a giant workbook that you can get. You do not need to get. You can get, that also goes along with it. So if you're wanting to add something for staff that has structure within, honestly, you could have this book and use it for years. You extract what you need. Maybe it's just an ongoing thing and theme that you have just within your school or district or team or organization. And I want to give a little shout out right now. COSM is doing a book study on this book. And I believe there are a few of you in the book club right now. And this is How to Train a Wild Elephant. Again, bite-sized, mindful moments that are within here. Literally the chapters, you have a little exercise. And honestly, if you just read this, it's really all you need. Then you have like the description behind it and the why, and it kind of digs a little bit deeper, but it's literally 3 pages. So again, bite size. I ended up using this tool for my district, and I recorded them with an educator lens, 10 weeks of it. So I made it kind of like a 10-week series. And so maybe that's something that you can do. So just finding those moments to share that mindfulness can be a moment, especially if we're thinking it's the one more thing to do. Well, when it's not the one more thing, when it's just integrated, it's a part of life, it's a part of the day, it's a part of the class. Maybe it's something your whole school or team connect with, and you embed it that way, and you reflect together. All right. Seeing the administration side, again, maybe these are those moments where you can even add mindfulness to your norms, to the space, just how I modeled in the beginning. Like we have self-care in there, but maybe there's something of like, being fully present and mindful during our time, just something that allows people that safety to be in that mindful space. There's that facilitation strategy, families. Okay, so let's do, now that you kind of have this in your brainstorm moment, I am going to take us here as well and just share with you a key part of the tool. So phase 2, you're really going to want to spend some time on outside of this time, but at least get your thoughts down initially. So the first bullet point, again, there are some guiding questions. So especially if there was something that I just shared, you're like, I want to create a committee, or I want to have once a week something. Just add it to your tool so you don't forget it. Where you see the steps, on the next page, it actually breaks the steps down. And I do want to give Breathe for Change another shout out here, because I adapted this from one of the activities that I had learned during that time as well. So the reason why I have like these steps of true like action planning underneath phase 2 for creating adult wellness is because most likely you're going to have to, I'm going to use the word like pitch the idea. You're going to have to share it with somebody, whether it's an administrator, whether it's a team, whether it's the teachers that you're leading. You're going to still have to pitch it to them. Like you're going to have to share it with them. And so by thinking through these steps on how you can make that one thing happen, you don't have to do all these giant things. It's just one small step creates that ripple, right? That's why we have the rock. That's why we have the ripple. And once you have one, then you have many. And then eventually you have more than just you doing things, and you let it go and do its thing, okay? So these steps will allow you to really think it through, know your why, know your how, okay? So at least let's do another 5 minutes of you just jotting down your things on your own. Then you'll get into a breakout room to be able to share a little bit and get some more ideas, and then we'll come back, okay? So let's take 5 minutes on your own. If you have questions, feel free to unmute or put in the chat box that you want to do like a breakout room with me, and we can talk one-on-one if you don't want to do it the whole group, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing and check any questions so far. Okay, so I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. Phase 2, get your ideas down and maybe start thinking about how can you make it happen? What are those steps? I'll be here if there are questions. And feel free to turn your camera off if you want, and especially just starting with mindfulness, the importance of being able to connect the brain. Because as adults, knowing the why am I doing this? And what does the research show? We can fall back on that because the research is solid in that with the brain. The articles and research that is in the space for like the benefits of mindfulness. So if you're looking for maybe these sessions, like the monthly sessions, maybe it's about like this time we're learning about the brain, maybe another session. So like during the committee, we did talk a little bit about those things. So know like all of that is together. And when we as adults feel empowered by talking about the brain and by understanding the research behind it, then we are able to share that with others. With kids, there's research out there, but we need more, more quality long-term studies. So always being able to let teachers know the research is very solid with adults. With kids, what is currently research is showing very promising evidence, but there's always more to be done. But the current evidence that has been shown has been very promising, which is why we are able to share what we know and how we know, and we refine along the way. So if at any time something may not be evidence-based practices, we're able to, change that over time into what is needed. So any thoughts about that? Steve, I see you unmuted again.
Oh, sorry. One key thing, I think it ties in a little bit to what you were saying there, is that when we understand the brain, you said the research is very solid with adults. It definitely is. With the children, especially younger children, but even as they're progressing through middle school, high school, and even into young adulthood, in college or university, their prefrontal cortex is not developed yet. So if we're expecting, certain things from kids whose PFC has not developed yet, well, that's a nice way to sort of pull ourselves back and go, their brain is still developing. we can't really necessarily expect certain behaviors, or we might expect certain behaviors based on the fact that their PFC is churning like mad. It's like a little hamster wheel. And if we can just calm, I like that idea of mirroring. You know, they will mirror our actions, behaviors, and our calmness, right? So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And then for time, I'm going to steal the thunder of the other group. Sorry, or unless Jennifer, do you want to mention it? No, okay. They were just mentioning the importance of modeling and how truly when we are in any space, the biggest opportunity is modeling for us to be able to share it with anybody. For those who are just starting their journey, again, going back to finding what works for you, that self-care plan, we have to embody it. So see what works there, try it for you. And then, you know, on your own time, lead it to nobody, but you're leading it for yourself, but you're practicing that and you're still benefiting from it. You know, they have us yoga teachers, we still benefit from teaching it, right? Meditation, mindfulness teachers, we benefit from teaching it. So just because we're leading it doesn't mean we're not getting anything. We benefit too. And if not more, because we're sharing it. So we get the benefit of sharing with others. Okay. Questions or anything so far? I know like I could spend literally all day talking about this. We're going to skip that break because we have, yeah. Hi, Tracy. Did you want the break?
No, I was just noting that it was 11:11 and the butterfly wings. And
Yes, 11:11 is a wonderful time, everybody. All right. So all of this really leads to phase 3. We're going to skip the journal reflection, but I want to pose the questions just to have you think about it. So thinking about your own school culture or district or wherever you're supporting school, I'm just going to use that as a broad term right now. Okay. Is it supported? Is it not? Is it hindered? Do you have the trauma-informed pieces? Is it that heart-centered approach with it? Or is it more of a directive approach? Is it top-down? Is it organic? What is the system in place for mindfulness or not? Or what is maybe going to be the approach? And thinking about what could be helpful in creating this mindful culture. And any other thoughts that just kind of come up with these questions. So I'd encourage you on your own just to think about it, explore it, see what comes up. I'm always the one, for me, the organic is best. That's just my personal preference. Maybe some of you have other ones, but for me, because we can't force people to engage in mindfulness. My philosophy is I can offer a space, and that's, you'll notice I'm going to pull out a couple of trauma pieces here. One, always an option. So that's why you'll notice the invitation language. You can join me if you like. I invite you to. When I do mindfulness, I always offer another alternative of either you can engage in the mindful practice, or if you have your journal nearby, you can do it in your journal. You always want to have some other type of practice that resonates with people. Same thing with the breath. I said if it was safe and comfortable for you, trauma-informed language. If it's safe and comfortable for you to focus on your breath, feel free. If not, I think some of you might remember I said you can go ahead and move your body from even just like left and right and notice that space. So we always want to be giving the choice. With adults, same thing, because they need to be empowered and make the practice their own. Our role is to create the space. That is it. They can use the space how they need it, but we created that space as leaders in this space. I want to share as we move into this phase 3. Phase 3 is the learning. So we've now embodied the practice. We've now decided how we can create and know what spaces we can use and share. Well, what do we share in those spaces? The learning piece. So there's a couple resources here that are great. My district uses Panorama, which offers, it's a survey of knowing just climate in general and social emotional learning. So it's a opportunity to take data, but it also has different tools. The link tool actually is available to anybody. You don't need to be a part of Panorama to gain access to it. And it's a comprehensive guide to adult SEL. So now you're able to connect, well, CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, CASEL has an adult SEL rubric, and you can engage that alongside with this guide to adult SEL. And again, having that purpose, that reason, we're not just doing some type of fun wellness self-care. There's a reason, because it matters, and we actually have competencies to guide our work in this. So I just wanted to share these resources with you, okay? As I mentioned, I wanted to share a little bit deeper with the committee in case this is something that you are interested in doing. These were the two main inspirations that happened simultaneously. As I mentioned, the book Onward. On here is linked. Yes, you can get it on Amazon, as well as Breathe for Change. If that is something you're interested in as well, you can have options for exploring. But what happened with these two things is they both had themes. So then I kind of crosswalked the themes to create experiences for the staff that I was supporting. So we were able to experience the committee for 2 years. Year 3, well, we had a pandemic. So I hope for the real year 3 to be this year, hopefully. So year 1, we all focused just on the adults. It was introducing and developing as a collective, what as a collective in our district does mindfulness mean? So just how I had you make your own definition, as a community, creating that so you have a shared definition as a school, a shared definition as a district or organization. Each month had its own theme and they revolved around that. So you can literally just use that tool to guide you. Again, I always do my own spin off of things because that's just what I do, but you can literally just do and start here. It's a very easy way to get going with it. I also offered a pre-session. So for our early learning teachers and junior high teachers that are on different hours, I was able to offer 30 minutes prior to the main session for just an adult mindful movement, because I wanted them to have the opportunity to engage in it because they have different hours. They may not have been able to have opportunities to stay the whole time for the committee. And the interesting thing is all of this, everybody did it volunteer. I didn't get paid to do it. They didn't get paid to come. Everybody that came was invested in it, which was actually phenomenal because it wasn't just like 2 people. Like there was at least 25 people that came consistently. And once they came, they kept coming. And having a committee so that it could invite people in and out too, because people are ready at different times. So thinking about that. For year 2, we shifted a little bit to now include student pieces, but as we've learned here, what we do for ourselves often, I will put a caveat, because obviously there are things that we can do outside of school for our adult wellness that we cannot do inside schools. Maybe we'll be able to, I have that later on, but we'll see with our timing. Secularity, putting that out there to make sure. So back to here, Lindsay, focus. So then we have moving into the student realm, that what we do for us, we're also able to experience and share with kids. Okay, so this is like the best professional learning. This is like where you can actually learn something, apply it, and reflect with a group. Like, isn't that the dream that we always hope for? Because normally it's like, here you go, and never talk about it again. But we were able to try something, see and adapt it, practice it together, share it with the students or teachers that we support, come back the next month. How did it go? What can we refine? And then add on to it. And that was the first half of our learning. And the second half of the learning was a choice session for adults. You'll see here what I had offered was a mindful movement that's what I physically led. So I would lead during that time. The other ones were self-directed, or if there were particular leaders in regards to like somebody who's passionate about mindfulness that really wanted to share something, they could take on a leadership role and then do that. So walk and talks, different prompts to just think about and doing the walk and talk or the mindful walk. I had the self-care planning and I was able to book a couple different rooms or spaces for people to, so maybe think about logistically how that might work. And even app exploration. Often we find these apps, we hear about them, but we don't ever get a chance to like explore it. So I booked different rooms for people to just explore an app, like click around. What does it look like, sound like, practice it with other people and see how that goes. This time it was pretty cool because from the first committee and central office able to see the importance of it. And so now they actually allowed it to be a part of a grant, and then people were paid to be able to take care of themselves, which was like a dream come true. It was amazing. So we'll kind of see how it goes, but that's how I structured this committee and how it's grown over time. And these are sample agendas that I had, just so you can kind of see what the structure was. And again, I model these types of structures, just like how our learning today, it's really a trauma-informed practice because we are structuring it in a predictable way. And people knew exactly what they would be getting. And we're very transparent about everything. So I'm going to pause for a moment and see if there are questions about like the committee or things that have come up for a moment. So let me stop sharing. All right, so where are we at? Like questions or ideas or anything here?
You had brought up Breathe for Change, and I just wanted to clarify, like, you don't have to have taken the training to get lots of free resources. Like I just signed up to be a subscriber to their newsletter, and they do free webinars all the time. They have a resource page that would give you ideas to what to use in some of your meetings.
Yeah.
Lindsay, I have a question. What adult check-in survey do you use?
Yeah, so that it was just a Google form that I created. And so the beginning of every session, people would do this survey. It's not an active link on here, but maybe what I can do is after our time, I can either take a screenshot or make a copy and send it to everybody here, just so you have something. I want to say there was like a rating scale, so I can see over time, like, how is it working? Is there a change in our practice? So I know there was a rating scale. I want to say that I also put just overall things that they notice and a reflection. Yeah, I think those were the main parts in that survey, but yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Other thoughts or ideas or questions?
Yeah, on the COSM member site, if you go, we have one I love to use is Daniel Ruckschafen's from his book, The Mindful Way of Education. And I even made it into a form that you could fill out. But if you go to the discovery area and then to the featured and kind of scroll to the very first post I think I ever did, you can find it there. It's a good one.
Thanks.
Yeah, we definitely want to be measuring the progress and evidence, our own evidence of the work that we're doing. Again, that also creates that investment in for other teachers. If they're able to see like, oh, wow, like this group was able to experience this and this was the result. Maybe I can try that too. Yeah, great questions. Anything else so far? All right. As I am going to continue sharing in a moment, I'd encourage you, if you would like, to take any other movement, even if it's a stretch to the side of like a half moon or anything that kind of moves your spine a little bit, because when we're sitting for a while, our spine collapses and we want to keep that open with our breath. So as soon as you're back and you've kind of moved your spine a little bit, when you're sitting, consider if you want to even push your tailbone back, because it'll naturally open up your breathing, your lung space. So even if you just push your tailbone back to your chair, you'll naturally sit up taller and more open. And you'll also find that your attention becomes a little more alert. Well, that's because our spine is now aligned. All right. So I shared some other opportunities here for learning. I do want to mention them because, again, some of you are here looking for specific things to share with teachers. And if anything, as I mentioned, the first 3 phases are the most important that we wanted to share together. So if we don't get to really go very deep into the last 3, I'm okay with that. Maybe I can even offer a part 2 or something if we'd like. But thinking about other avenues. Could there be summer learning sessions? I was grateful enough that lucky enough, blessed enough, whatever enough, that my district allowed me last year and the year before, I was able to do a full day workshop when we could be in person for mindfulness. And then a half day workshop was last year and it was online. But finding these moments, these avenues in your action step in phase 2, it asks you, what assets do you have? Notice what you can do, what's existing. Could you create a little mini learning series? What I had done is literally I had a presentation. There's just like 3 mini sessions, and asking with leaders, even if it was like 20 or 30 minutes of their professional learning time, if certain buildings were interested, and a little bit of the brain, a little bit of one tool practice with a partner and have them practice leading each other. And then it was the reflection one afterward, and any insights. So could there be a little mini learning series of just 20 minutes? Are there groups of people who are interested that you could tap into that maybe you can support in? Maybe you can recommend some of these books that I've shared. Maybe it's you engage in that Thoughtful Thursday with that group, or an app or something along those lines. Maybe this is where I've been really focused, is really the coaching cycles. So if there are teachers that are interested, I'll be with them and we do a coaching cycle together. So even if you're not a coach, you're in roles. We're all leaders. A leader is just a quality, not a person. That's what I go with. It's a quality, not a person. So we're all leaders in different capacities, and we are able to coach and mentor as we can with anybody who's interested. So could there be those moments of sharing together opportunities of learning? For those of you who are just starting, maybe there might be other people around you that you can learn from too. I'm always here, like reach out, please do. Maybe it's a book. What I wrote in chapter 34 is, when there weren't people to support me, there are other resources, there are books, there are courses, there are things to continue learning, and so many free things. And Cosm is an amazing outlet for that too, for continued learning. And as members, like, it's all free, which is absolutely amazing. Again, thank you, Tracy. But yes, and also maybe thinking about making it more accessible. So this past year, I made a mindfulness website before, but this was where I started to really dive a little bit deeper in being able to get it to more people. So is there a way to make the information accessible in an easy way? Yes, and even recording, I would record myself, use that as like a mentor video for people to do. And then they felt empowered to share with their students or each other as a staff. Questions or ideas about this? I'm gonna check in the chat box for a moment because we have about 30 minutes. So, question. Do you want to be able to get back into breakout rooms and just really brainstorm again together, getting some ideas? I think we'll change the breakout rooms again and add it to groups, 1 more person in each group. So there's a little bit larger for more people, so maybe 2 groups. If we do this route, or I can keep going into the next couple of layers and phases. Where would you like to spend our time? In a breakout room to continue to get some more ideas with each other, or keep going? So you can write in the chat box, room, keep going. So far, a couple of keep goings. Okay. It looks like the majority is will keep going, and you will still have time in a breakout room. I just want to know as a facilitator where we wanted to go. And I do want to mention that special link that I shared. I'm not like exclusively doing anything in there, but what I did do on our platform is each of the phases, I made a question in our group. And so if there are things that come up that either are great ideas that you want to share with each other and us, or if there are questions that come up specific to that, that's the purpose of the group. So even if you want to kind of go in there after this, I might pop in some different resources there too. So maybe like that survey and stuff, I might pop that in there. Okay. I wanted to give a quick shout out here to the Admin Academy. This one was a slide that was taken from the Admin Academy because there are some great resources if you are interested in exploring trauma-informed practices. I'm just using that word. Everybody has their own viewpoint on what trauma-informed, trauma-skilled, heart-centered, healing-centered. You got a lot of different spaces for that. But because majority people connect with trauma-informed, I'm going to use that word here. So there's an amazing article for the Admin Academy that you can read. They talk about the 8 R's for developing that trauma-informed space, and also just a couple really great resources. Did I pull the book? I did. This is by far my favorite book. Well, anything from David Treleaven is amazing for trauma-informed practices, but he wrote this book, Trauma-Sensitive Mindfulness. It's not just for educators, it's for anybody, but this is a really wonderful read. You could tell marked a lot of pages, but if that's something you are interested in exploring further, please do. And I also wanted to just give a shout out there as well for the Admin Academy. This book is the recommended, not required, but kind of required reading. This book is called Cultivating Mindfulness in the Classroom. This resource, let's see. So here are the authors in case you're writing things down. I can put this in an email as well afterward. Janine Iberlin, I believe is how you say her name, with Mike Ruley, I think. But regardless, this book, very simple, right? It's very short, but it allows you a guide for taking the next steps. So the Admin Academy takes the adult practice, and now this is more in the classroom, in the schools, in the spaces. Okay, so just wanted to give a quick shout out for next steps if you're interested in exploring them as well. Okay.
And that author is a former superintendent, so it's coming from, that voice is something that's not really out there in other books.
Yeah, and super so as an SEL coach, so I know there's somebody here, I believe, I don't remember who, but I know you are in New York and you are doing SEL. Even within here, how it's structured, there are actual like steps on like in regards to like SEL, like you can take an SEL approach with this. So even let's say you're doing this could be the committee. Okay, so like a committee who are really committed to bringing mindfulness within the space, you can do this as even a study together and like, how can we craft this? Okay. So I do want to just give you, we have this, but some of you are going to be like, I still have a couple weeks in summer. I want to keep going, but make sure you embody the practice. Okay. So for finding those partnerships, so we keep mentioning them, but who is it? And again, I'm going to just give you a few moments to think about it. because really it's different for every person. So some people to think about. Are there teachers in your building? Like, just take a moment and just jot down the names. So in your plan, write down the names of people who could be in your crew. Who are your partnership? Who is your crew? Are there teachers? Is there an actual team of teachers? I was working with a school that literally a whole team was like, we are doing this, we're doing this together, and like rallying around that as a team. Or is there somebody in a team who has a team that's really strong, that like to do things together, that they can then start growing as a team together? If you are in the leadership roles or the Department of Ed, like you have different types of schools. Are there particular schools that are ready and adults who are ready? One of the teachers, or I don't remember who shared it, but somebody had shared that they have been visiting, I think they're a middle school teacher. Somebody, you might know who I'm talking about. One of you shared that you're actually going to the elementary schools and sharing mindfulness with the adults. Who was this? Was it Teresa? Teresa, yes, Teresa. Can you share briefly kind of what you were doing?
A coworker and myself, we teach a yoga mindfulness elective at our school. And we had put together a program which we have brought to some of the elementary schools, and we go to their staff meetings and we teach mindfulness and introduce mindfulness to their staff. And it's growing, and through word of mouth, we've been invited to more and more schools to continue the presentation. So we're really excited and hope to get to do more of that this coming year.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. But like, even thinking about that, are there ways of, if you are at a school, can you connect with a mentor school? Like if you're an early learning center, is there a way to connect with an elementary, or the junior high that might be connected? Like, are there ways of doing that, and even like having that opportunity? And we'll see what COVID presents. You know, it might be online, in person, or whatever. We'll see. That's why we're scientists and being creative in it, but we can at least see the potential and craft the potential that is there. Cool. Yes, like, are there particular leaders? Are there certain people that need to be in your crew that really might not want to be on the crew, but you kind of want them there? Like, who are those people? Are there outside organizations like COSM that can support you along the way through mentoring? You know, we are here together as a whole community. We support each other. And then think about, like, how do you find these people? It wasn't until this year that I knew that there was somebody. She retired, but she tells me, oh yeah, I'm a yoga teacher. Oh, that would have been nice to know. It would have been nice. Like, I never thought to ask. So maybe there's other ways. Like, are there surveys? Is it through conversation? Is there something that you can create? Like, really get those creative juices flowing on how do you find your crew? So I think instead of a breakout room, I just want to ask, like, anybody have other ideas of people, of places, of resources? I don't know, like, Stephen, I know you're in like Canada, but I don't know if you do things in the US as a resource too, but like.
I have not, but I would be very interested. I mean, virtual is obviously great for something like this, and we have done portions of our pilot programs virtually. It can crowd, there's nothing legislative, there's nothing, you know, we could do it to for anybody. The one I offer for the Canadian mental health, I don't know what the acronym would be, but if you have mental health services in the towns and cities or districts, you know, that's another avenue. I have done a number of those virtually, with the idea that I would do full day in the future. So I don't really know exactly how it works in the States, but that's how I've been able to tap into an amazing network up here. So.
Yeah. Tracy, I see you unmuted.
Oh, I was going to share my screen quick and show something that's coming up for free on Pure Pure Edge has a lot of free webinars, and I saw this, and I even had to email them. I'm like, is this free? Can you see that? 5-day leadership institute with a principal, and you can kind of see how the 5 days are spread. So definitely check out that, as well as they have someone from Stanford University leading a 3-hour workshop. I just wanted to bring.
Yeah, unfortunately, mine are not free, but they're not overly expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and just knowing like there are a lot of resources out there, and even on Cosm, there's a whole like resources listing. So maybe it's something you connect with somebody that's even outside to just share a moment with staff. And so it could be something special. Could they be involved in, even just a quick exploration? And maybe if you're not, for example, if you're like, oh gosh, the brain scares me, then maybe you tap into somebody who has, the background with that to be able to share it and then directly connect it and like interweave it so that everything is, it's not separate, but it's together, right? So just really think about who's on your crew. All right. Anybody else have unique ideas or people? Anything else?
And
Okay.
Not to forget about the teens, the adults or the older, the older students, even 7th, 8th graders. I know a lot of schools do mentorship programs where, say, the 8th graders will go into the elementary schools, after they've done a few years learning with some teachers.
Yeah, just giving Sharon Hahn a little shout out here. She's not here with us, but she's one of our chapter leaders in New York. So any of you who are in New York, you might want to connect with her. Feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to. But she developed a whole mentoring thing for her students, junior high students, to be able to be empowered to be the leaders. So like the kids are leading the kids are leading adults too. And sometimes we're able to receive things better in our education space from students. So
What was her name? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Sharon, Sharyn, Sharon Hahn, Hahn. Mm-hmm. Yes, wonderful.
And there's a chat feature on our member site that you can really just type in the name and then send them a kind of like a personal message, like on Facebook.
Yeah. And she checks it often too. So again, she's actually the state facilitator as well for New York. So if you're in New York, Sharon is a good person to connect with. Yes. And Ohilda, I think, is also a connection with her as well. So Ohilda is also a great connection. All right. So for our last 20 minutes, we're not doing the break. You're going to get one in 20. I lied about the 20 minutes, but or the 2 breaks. We at least got the one, thanks to Tracy for the reminder. But I have them in here. I hope you don't mind. We have 2 phases. This phase, the 3 Ps, the patience, persistence, and presence. We're riding the waves. We are going to get into a breakout room with this one. You're going to want to make sure that you have your life jacket on. All right. So here, patience, reminder, it takes time. As I mentioned before, we are shifting it into a culture. We're creating that mindful culture. This is going to take time, but through all these different phases, okay, they matter. They seem simple. Who was it? I was in another group that's like, all of this is like not rocket science. I think it was Steve. But it's like, it's not rocket science. It's simple. But we need to remember to continue to still talk about it and share it, and can't assume. We can never assume anything. I'm not going to say the full quote of it, but when you break assume down, you make a out of you and me. So we don't ever want to assume anything. Okay. So we want to take our time with it. Resistance is a part of the learning. And that's just my friend here who is within special education, which is a couple of you actually, knowing that all that is a behavior, and behavior is communication. What is it communicating? Probably a misunderstanding and misconception. So in a moment, we're going to kind of tap into those misconceptions in a breakout room, and you're going to practice how to respond. Anyway, planting the seed. Persistence. We're used to in education, this is what I feel too, right? Like we know that we have this pendulum, but guess what? Wellness is holistic teaching. It's not going to go away, and it's not going to do this. It's here, okay? And so it's the foundation that needs to be a constant focus. So we need to find those ways that connect to everybody that we're with. This is another little golden tool that I have been using. The 16 personalities. Yes, you've probably either taken a Myers-Briggs, all of those different pieces. This is by far my favorite. And what I do with this is when I'm with people, especially those who I may not have a relationship with yet, but I kind of just take a step and see, okay, what kind of personality do they have? And how can I message this that speaks to them? We all have our own language, and certain things that I say may resonate with you and certain things may not, and that's okay. But when we can actually remove ourselves from our own self for a moment and take on the other person's perspective, what do they need to hear? And what this website allows you to see is it actually outlines like all the different pieces and components that are very helpful of knowing, especially when somebody has a different personality than ourselves, like how can we connect with them? How can we message it that resonates with them? And then finally, presence here, because being present is what builds the trust. If we're not reliable, if we're not continuing to show up and do these different pieces, then we're already like voiding the trust. And the more opportunities means the more it can be integrated. And so the one more thing complex, which I'm sure some of you are like, oh my gosh, this is just going to be one more thing, or you've heard that from people. When it's integrated and we find those moments, that doesn't exist anymore because it's just a part of it. It's a part of the day. It's a part of the class. Using class time, even those like brain breaks, well, they become mindful breaks. And that's a part of the day. It's not anything different. Right? So it's just integrated. Okay, so I do want us to get into a breakout room, and you're spared that I'm only going to give you 5 minutes. But I want you to take a moment here, take a minute on your own first. And you'll notice in phase 5, there's 2 boxes. One is about misconceptions, and the other are those reasons or comments that different things you've heard from people who may be more resistant or unsure. I don't want to use the word resistant, but I'm using that for common language here, okay? Just write them down. What have you heard? Or those ones that you're like not quite sure how to respond to? And take this moment to think about, okay, how could I respond to that? Like if somebody says like, well, isn't mindfulness a religion? Well, how do you respond to that? Like what if somebody were to say like, oh, mindfulness is just yoga. I'm not doing yoga. This one was my favorite one. Well, should I just buy Lululemon pants and do a mindful moment? Oh gosh, I was boiling on that day. 1, I don't own any of those. And 2, no, it's not the same, right? So anyway, but still, like, what would you say in those misconceptions? Because all it is it's communication, right? And then thinking about those personalities, if there's particular people that come to mind, because guess what? That first activity we did, oh, that directly relates here, okay? So being able to have that conversation back and forth of the limiting and the courageous, and knowing what you can say and do, okay? Maybe in your breakout rooms, if some of you have other resources as well, you can pop them in our shared group, okay? So just take a moment, write some of those down and how you might respond. And in the group, if somebody responds in a way you're like, ooh, I like that, write it down. I like what they said, write it down. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, coming back. And okay, 5 minutes only. And then we're going to come back. Does anyone have questions of what you're doing? Yes, I'm like totally making you take a risk. So I did put in the slide deck because again, secularity comes up and we actually have to make sure that we know this because there's 2 things. Now, this is really important actually. So there's the personal practice, which we talked about, and the stuff you can do in schools. Secularity is absolutely important. Know that, especially even for like COSM, we're focused on adults. So like you have access to anything like energy things, we have Tai Chi, we have yoga, we have all those different opportunities for our own self. And that helps our nervous system. And we can still do that for ourselves. But certain things we really can't share with kids legally, with like energy and like things, just because there are different laws in place and you just have to know your community. Some communities and, you know, some private schools, you can do particular things, but if you are in public school, just be aware. I wanted to highlight, so especially those who have the book, the Educating Mindfully book, amazing chapter 11. The whole chapter 11 talks about how you can make sure that everything is secular. There's particular questions. It talks about the establishment clause, the lemon test, not lemon law, lemon test in regards to that. So just making sure that everything that you share with kids in public schools is solid. Okay, so wanted to make sure that I shared that with you. And phase 6, we actually talked about, and those are just finding ways of reflecting. So after you're done today, figure out, how do you know it worked? How do you know when you're done with sharing this, which we're never done, but how do you know that what you've accomplished with your goal, with what you did with your stone today, that it worked for you? Okay. The last couple of things, if you're open to it, feel free to share feedback for me about this time so that I know how it resonated with you. At the back, I have a few resources on how you can connect with me, whether Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, my website, and other resources. Last kind of cool thing here, we just did the giveaway of my book, but also know that I'm giving you a code. So for those of you who haven't gotten my book, if you are interested in it, till tomorrow, I will give you 50% off a book, okay, from me with like autographed, okay? So you can decide if that's something you're interested in. And then also if you wanted to join me for a yoga class, I'm also giving you 50% off of that. They're starting back in August. They are online, so anybody can have access to that. And if you are interested in coaching, the first session is always free. Okay. So for our final closing moment, just take a moment, settle back in, bring yourself fully present into this time, in this space, in this gratitude. And maybe reading back that vision one more time to you and cherishing that plan that you had in this time, to just even getting your thoughts down on how to share with the adults that you are around. And allow just that opportunity to pick one thing, one small step, one thing to do and to focus on. And let that resonate on your heart. And taking 3 community breaths here, breathing in that courage and breathing out anything that stops you. Again, breathing in that courage and breathing out anything that stops you. And breathing in anything else that you need. And breathing out anything you don't need. Take any other moment for you. If your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them if they're open, looking around the space with a smile. And just ending with our quote again, that I alone can't change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. Thank you all so much for being here, for sharing this time, especially over summer and these amazing 3 hours together.